Hey, what's going on, y'all? So this is Ricardo Billazar. Welcome to the channel, Lesson with Ricardo. And today we're going to be exploring how I got hacked. Okay, let me not be too over the top exaggerated. I'm not saying I'm hacked, but I found some really suspicious activity, and I wanted to walk through it with you. Also, if you're interested, stick around for the video, and let's check it out. All right, let's do it. All right, y'all. So welcome back. Today, once again, we're going to be exploring how I found that I may have been compromised. Really, I know it is some really suspicious activity happening on my account, and I took some actions that I think will be very, very helpful to all of you. So, if you're interested in getting into incident response, or if you're interested in exploring an option for the world of incident response, this is the video for you. I am taking my day job experience and I'm making this video for you all, and I'm going to be applying this in a slightly more educational format because I'll be aligning what I show you in this video with the actual SANS incident response life cycle. Now emphasize SANS because there are a few other ones, particularly NIST has one, and they are slightly different. It's almost like the OSI models. There are two different primary versions of the OSI model. So, I guess I should say OSI, but there are two models that we use to troubleshoot networking, and OSI being one of them, and then the networking. But anyway, the point is we're focused on incident response today. So that is what this video is going to be all about, and I hope you really enjoy this lesson. So I think the best thing for me to do now is to first let's lay out what that incident response lifecycle is used for, right? What it means, what it is first of all, then how we use it. So let me not say first again, but the incident lifecycle from SANS is presented as, I believe there are six phases. That's going to be prepare. It's going to be identify. It's going to be containment. It's going to be eradication. Apologies, I'm still getting over a cold. Recovery, and then lessons learned. Those are the main phases in which you go through when applying, the steps of incident responder. Now, prepare is probably the most important one. That's something I can't really show you per se, but I could talk to it because we did preparation in just the fact of setting up a sim. That is one major part of preparation, but it's not the only thing. When it comes to preparing for incident response, it is your tool set, but more than that, it's also your processes, your procedures, your standards. These have to align with what your overall goal is for the organization. So please, I want those who are interested in this not to think that preparation is just having the right tools. The reason why is because what you come to find out, every organization uses a different set of tools. So it cannot be tool specific, but it can be the practices that you expect a tool to support you through. Excuse me. So what that means is you want to really put a lot of effort into your procedures, your SLOs. So the service level, service level agreement SLA. What does SLO stand for? Service level um, operate. I can't. Let me Google that. I don't know why it slips my mind. I always think about SLAs. Um, SLO, service level, and let's see what it objective, service level objective. So yeah, so that's what it is. So these are things you want to plan for, and then have a tool set to help you do that, to reach that goal, right? So one thing I really enjoy about WASA, which is also be a part of this video, is that WASA really comes pre-packaged with alignments to MITRE attack framework. Also comes with a security configuration assessment. So the preparation by installing both Security Onion and WASA is really well taken care of as long as your objectives as an organization or as a household, a home lab, is met by those, right? So you have to put some effort in preparing and setting up what kind of detections you want to have in your particular security stance posture. All right, so that's the first thing. So P, preparation. The next thing is identification. Now, identification is kind of an overlap there, what I just mentioned about the setting up detections. Obviously, you want to know what you're looking for to know when it has been identified in your environment. So that is somewhere I can take you through the video and show you kind of how Security Onion helped me alert to what happens. So let me go and turn on my screen. Let me share this. And all right, so here we are. So we're looking at the screen here, and we are currently logged into Security Onion. Now, Security Onion, you always want to visit the dashboard. The dashboard is pre-set up with a lot of useful metrics that you're probably going to be looking for in your system. So I use metrics. I didn't read the screen. Wow. All right. So I'm using the right terminology for once. It'll probably last about all of 5 minutes, but we'll go with what I have. So I have metrics here. Now, we've seen this before in previous videos. Configuration video we just had, where you have the metric bar graph, I guess. But this is what stood out to me. I come in on a daily basis, and I check to see what kind of event categories I see, which is like file processes, network level, identity access management, sessions authentication. Also take a look at what my counts are when it comes to source IPs that are surfacing on my dashboard. Now, I'm expecting quite a few of them to be my internal IP addresses, which means when I see one that is not an internal IP address, which we all know, for at least my network, I have set up as 192.168, and then the third octet, so the next dot in that digit, will be different, but the 192.168 is standard Class C internal IP addressing. And anything outside of that is always going to throw a red flag for me. So as you see on the screen here, I noticed that I had a new IP address in my source IPs. I'm like, that's not a source IP for my network. So that means it must be coming into my network from an external address, which I'm not expecting. So what I do here at this point is if you left click, not right click, left click on it, it'll give you an option to do include, which will narrow down your search to just that particular address. And from here, look what happens. We notice that it is a port 22. Now, if you're not familiar with port 22, it is the primary port used for connecting from one system to another using secure shell. Now, it is an encrypted pathway, which is the reason why attackers use it, is that if you're not set up, which I'm currently not set up to proxy a secure channel like this, then what they are doing is totally invisible to me because I don't have the key to decrypt what they're doing. So I can see the fact activity is happening over that port because the agent is capturing it, but I can't see inside of what's actually happening. Now, me personally, why the heck is an external IP address trying to establish a connection over secure shell to gain local access to my machine? That's the question, right? I did not establish that, so it's not me. First indicator that I'm compromised. Now, there are some more aspects to take into account, which is where WASA comes into play. But this alone is the first red flag. So this is now where we are in identification. We use the dashboard to identify where an outlier has populated in our logging. Now, from here, the next step is containment. But I have to caveat this with you never go directly into containment. You want to establish an understanding of what the actor or the action taken is actually doing and how much of a reach is actually happening with your system in that particular activity. I will tell you, I'm not very skilled in Security Onion. What you've seen so far of installing Security Onion is what I have covered, minus maybe a few extra minutes here or there playing around with it. But I haven't learned to really delve into Security Onion's capability for search. And also, my day job is a Windows house, right? And this is a Linux machine that you're seeing captured here. There are aspects of Linux I'm still learning. It's a lifelong journey, at least how I look at it. So all that to say is that I don't really know how to investigate further. Therefore, I am going to be taking time to understand what it is I should be looking into. So it's something I guess I'm not too worried about it, and I'll show you in a moment the reason why I'm not too worried about it. But for the most part, um, it's something I have to dig into to understand more before I do a full containment. All right, so that being said, there is a such thing as light containment. Now, if I wasn't clear, containment is literally it's not getting rid of the actor or the activity. It's ensuring that the activity is cut off and isolated so that it does not go beyond the border you put up for it. And that ensures it does not spread any further to any other devices within your network. And the reason why it's really important that you understand more about it before you do containment is because some bad actors, some activities that are malicious can be signaled once containment happens and it will execute other things. So, that being said, in a real environment, in a production environment, or enterprise environment, yes, we want to contain. We want to ensure that containment is not going to cause other chain reactions happening, though. So, not saying you take forever to do it, but do your due diligence and triage the situation appropriately. So I'm gonna isolate it to just the only the activity in the logs with that IP address. So look and find out is that there's only two activities that are using ephemeral ports to initiate communication before it goes out. I mean, before it comes into my network. Let's go ahead and copy this address. We'll go over open the virus total. Now I've already done some searching for this, obviously, but I wanted to go back and show you what I find. So over here, we have 16 out of 89 is malicious. Now, that means there is a chance this is not a malicious activity, but once again, I don't expect any external IP addresses trying to access my system as a remote connection over SSH. So this to me is malicious in just that activity. So this is also flagged by virus total as being a potentially malicious IP address. So let's keep that in mind. Let's go back to Security Onion, which I'm not sure why I just went to the browser. Oh, actually, now that we've seen that IP address is malicious, what can we do for containment? Now, at this point, what came to my mind is, hey, we've covered access in our router, we've covered some of the firewalls. Why not log into Unify Dream Machine Pro and set up a way of blocking this IP address from coming from outside of the network? So really, that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to log into my Unify Pro, and we're going to go ahead and set up a firewall rule. There is a twist to this that makes it even easier to continuously be prepared to handle this kind of situation. But first, let's look at the firewall rules. All right, so we see here in the firewall rules, we're going to go ahead and create a new one. Now, type is very important at this point. We have internet, which is what we're looking at. This is going to be any traffic coming over the WAN port. So the WAN port is just the port that you connect to your ISP when it comes to a router. Now, for me, internet in is what I'm going to focus on first. I'm going to go ahead and do a name, which is malicious IP, and we're going to do drop. And of course, it's going to be before predefined, which means it's executed first before the next rule is seen by the firewall. And we're going to throw in the IP address. Now, this is what you could do if you know you have a situation where there's only one person or one bad actor with one IP address. I say that because with this kind of situation, we have to assume this is a larger organization. A lot more IP addresses will be associated. But I'm first going to walk you through how to do one. So if you're in a situation where you only have to do one, this is what you do. Go ahead and drop the IP address, and then for network, we're going to do any, and we're going to leave a port and IP group, and we add the rule. Now, this works best if you have a specific IP address that you're targeting. I did any on port and IP groups. The problem here is that, will that be all of my internal IPs? I'm not sure. So then I thought about it. I'm going to go ahead and do an out to make sure we can't communicate or anyone cannot communicate with that one. But I probably want to set up the IP group since I have that option. Now, if you don't have the Unified Dream Machine Pro or using Unify OS for whatever device you are with, then this obviously doesn't directly apply, but the concept should apply. This is what you want to do. All right, so now Actually, what I really want to do is set up an IP group like we just saw as a part of the option of the firewall, and this will allow me to dynamically add more and more IPs that I may find throughout my investigation. And this is probably the best way to go about doing it. Now, you do have to choose between IPv4 or IPv6, and I'll also change the firewall rule sets as well. But we know this is IPv4. I don't know why I cannot say that. And we're going to just stick with that. So we're going to do something very basic and set this up as well. And here we're going to use this CIDR block notation, which will allow us to capture every IP address within those particular networks themselves. Now I'm going to add every subnet in a third octet between 1 and I believe 7 or 8. And then I realized I don't actually use .5. So the 5 subnet is not actually used right now, but hey, it's not going to hurt anything. Because if I choose to do it later, it's already covered. So we got that covered. Now, so we've set up both the malicious IPs and which is IPv4. I do an IPv6 at a later time, and then also we set up the internal IP addressing. So that's done. So as a reminder, we are currently in the containment step. So we still have eradication, recovery, and lessons learned per the SANS IR model. Now let's go over to the firewall rules, and we're going to add a new firewall. Well, we're going to modify the firewall rule we just made. I want to make sure it's as effective as possible, so I am going to retarget the IP group we created, which is all internal networks for both the internet in and the internet out, and then I'm going to change the IP address to the malicious IP group I created. Now this is going to ensure it captures exactly what I expect it to do. This is something I encourage anyone with unified devices using Unified OS to do. And there we have it. This is going to block any communications for any port between the IP address I placed in the malicious IP group and also the really all of my other networks internal to us. So this is containment. We have now contained whatever is on the device that established that ephemeral port to communicate out to the IP address. That is now going to be contained, at least to that particular IP address. The next thing at this point is to start to develop the case, though. I want to make sure you're aware that you can build a case within this tool set of Security Onion, and that's what I recommend you doing. So let's go ahead and click on, well, actually, I want to look at the network, community, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, here we go. All right, so we click on this, we isolate it down, we want to add a new case item, and once again, it's all left click, no right clicks. So left click over top of the data attribute that you're looking at to get the drop down menu with actions in it. And from here, we create a new case, and we're just going to do observable. And observables are just going to be items in which we can track over time, something we've seen in the investigation. We'll place it in the category appropriately, which is IP address, which is IP, and then obviously add a description. It says malicious IP. So malicious IP, unsure why talking over SSH, probably the best description I could come up with at the time. And yeah, we could change priorities. So I try to stick with priority levels, very similar to what we do. And I think it's really common across the board. So P1 is the most sensitive and highest priority, P5 being the least sensitive. So we'll get a priority of 5 because honestly, I don't know really what it's doing completely, but I have contained it. It is not exactly something I'm worried about. I may need to be, but at this time I don't have any reason to be. Let's go and make a comment so we have this in our case for future, situation. Yeah, so I blocked it on router, but need to investigate which process is trying to reach this IP and why. There we go. I like that note. I think that note captures everything. Good comment to make. And I will definitely be reminded when I look at this later in my cases. Now, what I haven't learned how to do is add an event. I have no idea how to do that yet. I don't know why that is so difficult. I feel like the option to add to case should come with the option of adding an event within Security Onion's interface because I clicked on the event to get to that, right? So I don't know why I can't add the event. Now that I think about it, it may be the fact of adding the event from clicking on the date stamp, timestamp. That might allow me to add the entire event. Or I have to maybe find where event, one of the data, I guess indices, not indices, but one of the data attributes containing event. Maybe I could do it that way. But it's just a thought for right now. All right, so I did make a previous case. I don't use that one. Is when I was finding out how to actually just navigate purely navigate this stuff. So I made the second one. All right, so let's go do a brief summary of the case. Now I did this IP address, but I probably should have done something a little more broad, maybe like SSHD, unknown IP, instead of using the actual IP address. Something to keep in mind. All right, so this was interesting. Hunt is actually a great way to do a trace of all activity related to the IP address we're currently looking at. So when I went into the, as you saw here, I went into the event I did find, and I did hunt, and it automatically, I guess you would say, correlated or aggregated all the communications that were tied together into one view, which I think is absolutely wonderful. So now we can see that everything actually started with a 443. So that's the encrypted web communication, HTTPS. So at some point, my machine reached out over the web to this IP address using HTTPS, which I believe the malicious software or application on my machine is doing that part of it. It makes a call to that to the endpoint external to my network, and then that then calls back what returns a response that instructs the local malicious software I have on how to communicate, I guess, create the ephemeral report, and then allow this external IP address to try and SSH back into my box. So I believe that's the pattern which we're seeing here. Now, I haven't dug completely into each of these logs, but this is a good stepping point for me in investigating and continuing to investigate what else may need to be contained. Now, eradication is what we can count as blocking over the actual firewall itself within the router because it does stop the communication, but it's not really eradicated, at least in my book, until I get rid of the malicious software that are doing these actual communications out to the rest of the world. Because even though I'm blocking the activity at the firewall, that's only a post active. I mean, I guess that's only after it's already made that communication, right? It's already established a new ephemeral report. It's already established a new IP address to attack from, and it does, report 22. Now, I will just go and give you a little bit of a spoiler. I did also reset my password for root, and I also disabled the ability for root to SSH in, well, I guess, establish a remote SSH connection shell. So that's why I do count this as eradicated from that point of view. The risk has been removed per se, unless that malicious software is actually resetting my password, which I know it's not, because I do periodically use the password, and it does not see that password, it sees the hash. Now, whether or not the bad guy is getting a copy of the hash, I won't know until I get a proxy set up, a SSH proxy. Now, this is where I kind of pivot and look into WASA, because I wanted to first see, does WASA even capture the same data? And this is kind of where in my last video you'll understand why I said WASA doesn't really do all of the things I expect the SIM to do. Because here I realized that I couldn't look for IP addresses external to my network, really looking at internet traffic. But what I did find is the SCA. So, and the SCA being the latest scan, the security configuration assessment, that is what stuck out to me the most, and that is what I actually found the most value in, because guess what we see? What we have here is there is a problem that they identified with SSHD configurations, which is pretty much the same application, ding, 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 that the adversary is using to connect to my system. So pretty much if I had used WASA to start with, if I had looked at this before, it would have reminded me that I need to harden my actual box locally and do some of the steps I do on my servers when setting up my overall at home lab, right? There's no reason not to treat your daily machine as a secure device, just the same way that you're hardening these servers that you're doing for your home lab. So that's what I noticed here. So I love this. This is why I encourage you to do get WASA, get Security Onion as well, so they can work together to make sure that you have the best security posture possible in your home. So WASA gave me those tidbits of advice. Now I did also mention that it has a FIM, so the File Integrity Manager. This is just going to give us a list of events where files have been changed or modified. So all alerts related to files changes included. That's basically what that pop-up states. Man, WASA really does a really good job. I mean, they track attaching devices. I mean, this is something that I absolutely love, right? And yes, I do use Clam AV antivirus. It is a free and open source antivirus. If you want it, please download it. But like any antivirus, you can't stake your whole life on it. It's just a helper, a tool. All right, so there you have it, everyone. I appreciate you walking through the review of the logs from Security Onion and WASA. I hope you're starting to see the value in having this set up. And honestly, it was so cool. It sounds horrible to say so, but it was so cool to see this happen, right? I expected to use the sim in choreographed or organized stuff I put together. Not ever did I imagine the fact that I would notice and find where I'm already weak and already potentially exposed or exploited by another entity. And yes, I should be way more frightened than I am now. At least I should be going to lengths and measures to make sure I understand what's happening. And I'm getting there. I'm getting there. It takes time when you have a family, you have a full-time job, you're doing these recordings for everyone. It takes time to get there, but we are going to get there. I want to capture as much as I can to share with you all, and hopefully, this really, if nothing else, ignites that fire within you, so that you understand that this is real stuff that can really help you not only improve your possibilities with employment opportunities in the future, but also just make you safer and really make you understand and help you understand that it's not just businesses that need to be careful and need to be prepared. It's all of us. If you are connected to the web, if you're connected to a network where other people can access information, which is pretty much everyone, if you're watching this video, you need to have this type of stuff. And I hope this goes to show you that. Now, I don't want to forget the rest of the life cycle, right? So we covered up until containment. Possibly some of it can be considered eradication. But I will say that recovery is definitely not in the works now. Recovery is where you establish normal operations. That means that hopefully I get to a point where I'm not blocking more IP addresses, I'm not getting more beaconings coming out, and I'm operating as though nothing has happened. Other than what takes to our last point, what I decide to implement as a new process, a new step in how I do my security because of what we call lessons learned, which is a post activity. So those are pretty much it. Those are the phases of incident response per SANS. NIST will list them differently, but it's all the same concept. We prepare for active actions and malicious activity before they happen. Okay? We identify what we need, we identify when it happens, we detect on it, and then we respond by containing. Okay? We got to contain the threats and really reduce our risks, whatever that takes. And after we contain, we want to make sure we're eradicating what we found. So the triaging is very important. The containment steps are important to make sure you can eradicate properly, because if you contain too early and contain without knowing the full breadth of the exploit or the compromise, you are risking the fact of missing some of the things that need to be taken out. But once you get to eradication, you then want to recover. You then want to give a breath of a sigh of relief, right? You want to make sure that you and those involved know that it has been taken care of with the appropriate measures. And then after that, you take a moment to think about how can you make sure it does not happen again with your lessons learned, and you apply those lessons learned, and you go back and you evaluate what you've done with your lessons learned. So that's it, y'all. So I hope you all enjoyed the video. I hope you are really worried for me, and that you're hoping. I'm hoping you send them in comments on how to, dig into my Linux box and dig into what this malicious software may be. If you're really into this, I'm happy to do a live session where we can just engage in this together and dig through my box. I am open. I do not know everything. I'm not perfect at this. I just love what I do, right? And I love showing it to you all. So if you like this video, please make sure you subscribe, you comment, you share, and you like it. And also stay tuned. Our next video is going to be a continuation of building out our home lab, which I think the next best step is going to be doing our DNS. The reason why doing a DNS server is so important is because I want to get into DOH because we're serious about privacy here. I also want to make sure that we get our reverse proxy set up, and all that requires us to have the appropriate domains to go through those steps, and that will feed into everything else we do, making sure it's all reachable from wherever we want to have it accessible from, right? Whether it be over the web or just internal, that DNS is critical to do the rest of the steps that we have. All right, so thank you for that, and I appreciate you. We'll catch you in the next video. Take care. We'll continue the journey together. Bye.